Marcus Chun had always been the kind of person who disappeared into crowds. At 18 years old, he possessed an unremarkable height of 5 feet 8 inches, mousy brown hair that refused to cooperate with any styling product, and a voice that rarely rose above a whisper in social situations. His acceptance letter to the Galactic Defense Academy had arrived on a Tuesday morning, and even then, he had read it 3 times before believing it was real. The Galactic Defense Academy stood as humanity's most prestigious military institution, established after first contact with the Zephyrian Empire 2 decades earlier. The sprawling complex on Luna Base housed cadets from across human space, training the next generation of officers who would defend Earth's colonies and maintain peace with the various alien species that now populated the galaxy. Marcus dragged his single duffel bag across the gleaming metal floors of the Academy's main entrance hall. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, decorated with holographic displays showing the locations of human colonies scattered across dozens of star systems. Other cadets moved with confidence through the space, their voices echoing off the walls as they greeted friends or formed instant social circles. Marcus kept his head down and followed the signs toward the dormitory assignments. Lost human. The voice carried a distinctly non-human cadence, each syllable precisely enunciated in a way that suggested the speaker's native tongue operated on different principles than standard galactic. Marcus looked up to find himself facing a Zephyrian cadet. The alien stood nearly 7 feet tall, their blue-scaled skin catching the artificial light in prismatic patterns. 4 arms extended from their torso, each ending in hands with 3 elongated fingers. Most striking were their eyes, large golden orbs that seemed to hold ancient wisdom despite belonging to someone likely Marcus's own age. "I'm sorry, what?" Marcus managed, his voice cracking slightly. "You appear disoriented." The dormitory assignments are displayed on the wall terminals, not on the floor where you've been staring, the Zephyrians said, gesturing with one of their upper arms toward a bank of screens Marcus had somehow missed entirely. "Oh, right. Thank you." Marcus felt heat rising in his cheeks. "I'm Marcus, by the way. Marcus Chun. I am Kestara of the Whispering Winds clan. You may call me Kess if the full designation proved challenging for your vocal apparatus." Despite the formal words, something in Kess's tone suggested genuine friendliness rather than condescension. Marcus nodded gratefully and made his way to the terminals. His dormitory assignment appeared on the screen along with his schedule, and he was relieved to discover his room was located in one of the quieter sectors of the academy. As he turned to leave, he noticed Kess still watching him. "Your quarters are in Section 7, Kess observed. "That is considered less desirable by most cadets. Fewer social gatherings, greater distance from the recreational facilities." "That sounds perfect to me," Marcus replied honestly. Kess tilted their head, a gesture Marcus would later learn indicated curiosity among Zephyrians. "Interesting. Most humans appear to prioritize social interaction above personal contemplation time. I'm not like most humans, I guess." "No," Kess agreed after a moment of consideration. "You are not." The next few days blurred together in a haze of orientation sessions, uniform fittings, and initial assessments. Marcus discovered that his academic scores had been high enough to earn him placement in advanced theoretical physics and xenobiology courses, but his physical fitness ratings barely met minimum requirements. During the academy tour, he learned about the various tracks cadets could pursue, including tactical command, engineering, diplomatic corps, and intelligence analysis. The dining hall presented Marcus's first major challenge. The massive space buzzed with conversation in dozens of languages, both human and alien. Cadets had naturally segregated themselves into species-based groups, with humans occupying roughly half the available tables. Marcus retrieved his meal from the food dispensers and stood uncertainly with his tray, scanning for an empty seat that wouldn't require him to ask permission to sit. "Marcus Chun." Kessa's voice cut through the ambient noise. The Zephyrian was seated alone at a table near the hall's edge, their own meal consisting of what appeared to be luminescent algae and crystallized nutrients. "You are welcome to join me if you wish." Marcus gratefully accepted the invitation and settled across from Kess. Up close, he could see the intricate patterns in the alien scales, each one unique like a fingerprint. Kess ate with delicate precision, using specialized utensils designed for their three-fingered hands. "Tell me about your homeworld," Kess said between bites. "I've studied Earth's geography, but have never spoken with someone who experienced it directly. I'm from Vancouver. It's a city on the western coast of North America, near the mountains." Marcus found it easier to talk when discussing facts rather than feelings. "The air smells like cedar trees and ocean salt. In winter, you can see snow on the mountains while walking on the beach. Your species appears to find aesthetic pleasure in geographical diversity," Kess observed. "Zephyrians prefer environmental consistency. My clan's territory consists entirely of crystalline formations and mineral pools." "That sounds beautiful too, just different." "Different," Kess repeated, as if testing the word. "Yes, I'm learning that difference does not necessarily indicate inferiority or superiority, merely alternative approaches to existence." Over the following weeks, Marcus and Kess developed an unlikely friendship. They studied together in the library's quieter sections, where Marcus helped Kess with human historical context, while Kess explained the mathematical principles underlying faster-than-light travel. Marcus discovered that Kess's presence actually made social situations more manageable, as other cadets were often too curious about the Zephyrian to pay much attention to him. The Academy's competitive atmosphere became apparent during the first round of tactical simulations. Cadets were divided into teams and given command of virtual starships in various combat scenarios. Marcus found himself assigned to a team led by Jake Morrison, a charismatic cadet from Mars Colony who had already distinguished himself as a natural leader. "Chun, right?" Jake said during their team's first meeting. "You're the quiet one from Earth. What's your specialty?" "Theoretical analysis, xenobiology, some engineering," Marcus replied, his voice barely audible over the room's ventilation system. "Speak up, man. How are we supposed to work together if we can't hear you?" Jake's tone wasn't unkind, but it carried the unconscious authority of someone accustomed to being listened to. "I said theoretical analysis, xenobiology, and engineering," Marcus repeated, only slightly louder. Jake nodded and moved on to questioning the other team members. Marcus found himself relegated to a support role, monitoring ship systems while others made tactical decisions. During their first simulation, a battle against a Krillian raiding fleet, Marcus noticed several inefficiencies in their approach, but couldn't find an appropriate moment to voice his observations. The simulation ended in failure. Their virtual ship sustained critical damage, and the enemy escaped with valuable cargo. Jake's post-battle analysis focused on weapons placement and shield management, but Marcus could see the real problem had been their failure to recognize the Krillians' unique combat psychology. "The Krillians fight in wave patterns," Marcus said quietly during the debrief. "They're not trying to destroy us outright. They're testing our responses to find weak points." "What did you say?" Jake asked. Marcus took a deep breath. "I said the Krillians fight in waves. It's part of their pack hunting instinct. They probe defenses before committing to a full assault. If we had recognized that pattern, we could have used it against them." "Interesting theory," Jake said dismissively. "But we lost because of firepower distribution, not psychology." Marcus didn't argue, but he made detailed notes in his personal files about Krillian tactical patterns. He suspected this knowledge would prove useful eventually. The weeks turned into months, and Marcus gradually adapted to academy life. His grades remained excellent, particularly in courses dealing with alien cultures and technologies. He learned to navigate the complex social hierarchies among cadets, finding his niche among the more academically oriented students who valued knowledge over charisma. His friendship with Kess deepened as they discovered shared interests in xenoarchaeology and theoretical physics. Kess introduced him to Zephyrian meditation techniques that helped manage his social anxiety, while Marcus taught Kess about human literature and music. Other cadets began to recognize their partnership, though some viewed it with suspicion. It's weird how much time you spend with the alien, commented Sarah Pierce, a cadet from Europa Station, during a break between classes. Don't you think you should be building relationships with your own species? Kess is my friend, Marcus replied simply. Species doesn't really matter when you're trying to understand quantum mechanics. Maybe not to you, Sarah said, but it matters to the instructors who'll be writing your evaluation reports. Just saying. Marcus didn't respond, but her words lingered in his mind. He had noticed that human instructors seemed more comfortable when cadets maintained species-based social groups. The academy officially promoted integration and cooperation, but subtle biases remained embedded in its culture. The semester's major challenge came in the form of the survival exercise, a week-long simulation designed to test cadets' ability to function under extreme stress. Teams would be dropped into a holographic environment modeled after hostile alien worlds, with limited supplies and multiple objectives to complete. Success required not only survival, but also accomplishment of mission goals that would test every aspect of their training. Marcus found himself assigned to a different team for this exercise, one that included Kess along with several other cadets he knew only by reputation. Their team leader was Elena Vasquez, a tactical specialist from Luna Colony known for her analytical approach to problem-solving. Before we begin planning, Elena announced during their first team meeting, I want to hear everyone's assessment of their own strengths and weaknesses. Complete honesty will serve us better than false confidence. The other team members shared their backgrounds and capabilities with varying degrees of detail. Marcus listened carefully, noting each person's expertise and potential blind spots. When his turn came, he took a steadying breath. I'm good at pattern recognition and analyzing alien behavior, he said. I'm not physically strong, and I'm not great at making quick decisions under pressure. But I notice things other people might miss. Elena nodded appreciatively. Honest assessment. Kess, I possess superior spatial reasoning and for functional manipulator appendages, Kess replied. My species requires less sleep than humans, allowing for extended operational periods. However, I am still learning human social dynamics and may misinterpret team communication. Excellent. Now let's talk about our simulation environment. The team spent hours studying their assigned scenario. They would be deployed on Kepler 442c, a world with dense jungle terrain, hostile native life forms, and weather patterns that included frequent electrical storms. Their objectives included establishing a communications relay, locating a crash survey team, and gathering samples of a rare mineral needed for starship construction. Marcus immersed himself in research about Kepler 442c's ecosystem and indigenous species. He discovered that the planet's electrical storms weren't random weather phenomena, but were actually influenced by the behavior of flying predators that used bioelectric fields for navigation. This knowledge might prove crucial for timing their movements and avoiding both storms and predators. The storms follow the feeding patterns of the voltaic rays, Marcus explained to his team, displaying his research on a holographic projector. If we can track their migration routes, we can predict when and where electrical activity will be strongest. How does that help us? Asked Tom Bradley, the team's designated marksman. We can use the storms as cover for our heat signatures while moving through predator territory, Elena said, immediately grasping Marcus's insight. The electrical interference will also mask our communications from any monitoring systems. Marcus felt a rare moment of satisfaction as he watched his teammates absorb this information. For once, his tendency to notice obscure details was being recognized as valuable rather than merely academic. The survival exercise began at 0600 hours on a Monday morning. Teams were transported to separate holographic chambers and given their initial equipment loadout. Marcus's team found themselves standing in a clearing surrounded by towering trees whose leaves crackled with static electricity. The air hung thick with humidity, and distant roars suggested that the jungle's predators were already active. Kess, start setting up the portable shelter, Elena commanded. Tom, establish a perimeter watch. Marcus, I want you monitoring environmental conditions and tracking those storm patterns you identified. Everyone else, inventory our supplies and equipment. Marcus deployed his environmental scanner and began analyzing atmospheric data. The readings confirmed his research about the voltaic ray's influence on local weather patterns. A major storm was building approximately 12 kilometers to the north, moving in their direction at a steady pace. They had roughly 4 hours before it reached their position. Storm approaching from the north, he reported. ETA 4 hours, give or take 30 minutes depending on wind patterns. That gives us time to establish base camp and plan our first objective, Elena said. Marcus, keep monitoring. I want regular updates on storm movement and intensity. As the hours passed, Marcus found himself settling into a crucial support role. His environmental monitoring proved essential for navigation and timing their movements. When the team needed to traverse a section of jungle inhabited by territorial herbivores, Marcus's analysis of plant damage patterns helped them identify safe corridors. When they encountered a river crossing guarded by aquatic predators, his observations about feeding behavior allowed them to time their crossing during the creature's inactive period. By the third day, even the more skeptical team members had begun deferring to Marcus's environmental expertise. His quiet voice carried new authority when he spoke about terrain analysis or predator behavior. The transformation wasn't dramatic, but it was noticeable. "Chen's become our secret weapon," Tom commented to Elena during a rest break. Who would have thought the quiet kid would turn out to be our survival expert? Sometimes the best leaders are the ones who lead through knowledge rather than charisma, Elena replied, loud enough for Marcus to hear. The exercise's climax came when they located the crash survey team on the 5th day. The survivors were trapped in a canyon filled with toxic gases, accessible only through a narrow passage defended by a pack of carnivorous creatures called razor stalks. Traditional tactical approaches had failed other teams attempting similar rescues. Marcus spent an hour studying the razor stalk's behavior patterns through his scanner. These creatures were pack hunters, but their coordination relied on complex pheromone communication. The toxic gases in the canyon were actually disrupting their normal scent-based coordination, making them more aggressive but less effective as a group. "We can use the gas against them," Marcus explained to his team. "If we can create a controlled release of canyon gases upwind from their position, it will scramble their communication completely. They'll scatter instead of fighting as a coordinated pack." "How do we create a controlled gas release without poisoning ourselves?" Elena asked. Marcus had already considered this problem. Kessa's species has natural filters in their respiratory system that can handle most toxic atmospheres. If we modify one of our emergency masks with additional filtration and extend the air supply with our backup tanks, Kess can get close enough to trigger a small landslide that will release the gases in a controlled direction. The plan was risky, requiring precise timing and coordination. Kess would need to position themselves at a specific point on the canyon wall, trigger a controlled avalanche, and retreat before the gas cloud reached dangerous concentrations. Meanwhile, the rest of the team would use the resulting confusion to extract the survivors. "I can accomplish this task," Kess confirmed after studying Marcus's calculations. "The risk factors are within acceptable parameters for my physiology." The rescue operation unfolded exactly as Marcus had predicted. Kess triggered the landslide at the optimal moment. The resulting gas cloud scattered the razor stalks, and the team successfully extracted all 3 survivors. Their mission concluded with a perfect score, something achieved by less than 10% of teams in any given semester. During the post-exercise debrief, the instructor specifically noted Marcus's environmental analysis and tactical insights. Commander Sarah Reynolds, the Academy's Director of Tactical Studies, made a point of addressing him directly. "Cadet Chun, your approach to environmental warfare shows remarkable sophistication," she said. "Have you considered specializing in xenobiological tactical analysis?" "I hadn't really thought about it, ma'am," Marcus replied honestly. "You should think about it. The galaxy is full of environments and species that can't be conquered through firepower alone. Officers who can think like you did during this exercise are rare and valuable. Walking back to his dormitory that evening, Marcus reflected on Commander Reynolds' words. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he felt like he might actually belong somewhere. His differences weren't weaknesses to be overcome, but strengths to be developed. Kess walked beside him, their footsteps creating an oddly harmonious rhythm on the metal deck plates. Your species possesses an interesting capacity for adaptation, Kess observed. You have transformed from someone who avoided attention to someone who commands respect through expertise. I don't feel like I've changed that much, Marcus said. I'm still the same person. Perhaps, Kess replied, but others now see what was always present. Sometimes that is all the transformation that is required. As they reached the dormitory, Marcus looked back at the academy's main building, its windows glowing warmly against Luna's stark landscape. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to prove himself, and new chances to discover what kind of officer he might become. For the first time since arriving, he found himself looking forward to the possibilities rather than dreading the obstacles. The shy cadet who had arrived with a single duffel bag and a tendency to disappear into crowds was beginning to understand that perhaps the galaxy needed people who noticed what others missed, who thought before acting, and who found strength in knowledge rather than charisma. His journey from the margins was just beginning. The second year at the Galactic Defense Academy brought new challenges and deeper specializations. Marcus had declared his major as Xenobiological Tactical Analysis, a relatively new field that combined traditional military strategy with detailed understanding of alien psychology and environmental factors. Only 12 students across all 4 academy classes had chosen this specialty, making it one of the most exclusive programs available. Marcus's reputation from the survival exercise had spread throughout the academy, but not always in ways he found comfortable. Some cadets now sought his advice on xenobiology assignments, while others whispered about the quiet human who had somehow impressed the tactical instructors. He found himself occupying an unusual social position, respected but still largely solitary. Chun. The voice belonged to Captain Marcus Webb, the Academy's lead instructor for advanced tactical theory. Marcus looked up from his notes to find the veteran officer approaching his table in the library. Captain Webb was a legend among cadets, having served on the front lines during the Krillian border conflicts before accepting a teaching position. Yes, sir. Walk with me, cadet. There's something I want to discuss. Marcus gathered his materials and followed Captain Webb out of the library. They walked in silence through the Academy's corridors until they reached a secure briefing room Marcus had never seen before. The space contained a holographic projector and several classified data terminals. What I'm about to show you is classified at the Gamma level, Captain Webb said, activating the security protocols. You have temporary clearance based on your academic performance and specialization. Do you understand the responsibilities that come with classified access? Yes, sir. Information security is paramount to operational effectiveness. Good answer. Captain Webb activated the holographic display, which showed a star map with several systems highlighted in red. These are the Outer Rim territories, specifically the Cygnus sector. 3 months ago, we lost contact with Outpost Meridian, a scientific research station studying indigenous life forms on Kepler 438b. The hologram zoomed in on a single star system, showing orbital mechanics and planetary data for Kepler 438b. Marcus studied the information carefully, noting the planet's atmospheric composition and gravitational characteristics. Initial investigations suggested equipment failure, Captain Webb continued. However, our intelligence analysts have detected unusual energy signatures in the vicinity. Command suspects hostile alien activity, possibly from an undiscovered species. What kind of energy signatures? Marcus asked. That's classified above your current level. What matters is that a reconnaissance mission is being planned, and I've recommended you as part of the advanced analysis team. Marcus felt his heart rate accelerate. Sir, I'm still a cadet. I haven't even completed my tactical training. You've completed more practical tactical training than most graduated officers, Captain Webb replied. Your performance during the survival exercise demonstrated abilities that can't be taught in a classroom. The mission commander specifically requested someone with your expertise in xenobiological analysis. The idea of leaving the academy for actual field work both terrified and excited Marcus. He had spent so much time studying alien species and their behavioral patterns that the opportunity to apply this knowledge in real situations felt like a natural progression. Who would I be working with? He asked. A small team of specialists. The mission commander is Lieutenant Commander Sarah Reynolds, who you met during your exercise debrief. There's also Dr. Elena Vasquez, now a graduated officer specializing in environmental systems, and your friend Cadet Kestera, who has been granted special permission to join based on their unique physiological capabilities. Marcus felt relief knowing that familiar faces would be part of the mission. Working with Kes and Elena would make the transition from academy to field work less intimidating. When does the mission launch? 2 weeks. That gives you time to complete specialized training in space operations and emergency protocols. Captain Webb deactivated the holographic display. This is an opportunity to prove that your theoretical knowledge can translate into practical results. Don't waste it. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of intensive training sessions. Marcus learned to operate in zero gravity, use advanced scanning equipment, and follow emergency evacuation procedures. The physical demands pushed him harder than anything he had experienced at the academy, but his determination to prove himself capable drove him through each challenge. Kes joined him for many of the training sessions, their forearmed physiology providing advantages in zero-gravity maneuvering that impressed even the veteran instructors. During their off hours, they studied the available data about Kepler 438b and theorized about what might have happened to the research station. The indigenous life forms show unusual bioelectric properties, Marcus noted, reviewing the scientific reports from Outpost Meridian. Similar to what we encountered during our survival exercise, but more complex. The researchers were particularly interested in a species they called phase dancers because of their ability to briefly shift into non-corporeal states. Intriguing, Kes replied. My people have legends about creatures with similar abilities, though we have never encountered them directly. The stories describe beings who exist partially outside normal space-time. That sounds like science fiction. Many things that humans once considered science fiction have proven to be scientific fact, Kes observed. Perhaps the distinction is less meaningful than we assume. The day of departure arrived with little ceremony. Marcus found himself aboard the UES Pathfinder, a long-range scout vessel designed for extended missions in unexplored space. The ship was smaller and more cramped than the Academy's training vessels, but it was equipped with the most advanced sensors and analysis equipment available to human forces. Lieutenant Commander Reynolds conducted the mission briefing in the ship's main conference room. Along with Marcus, Kes, and Dr. Vasquez, the team included Chief Petty Officer Williams, a veteran engineer, and Sergeant Shun, no relation, a security specialist trained in xenobiological threats. Our primary objective is to determine what happened to Outpost Meridian and assess any potential threats to human colonial expansion, Reynolds explained. Secondary objectives include recovering any survivors and salvaging research data, if possible. The journey to Kepler 438b took 6 days through hyperspace. Marcus spent most of the time reviewing xenobiological databases and preparing analytical protocols for studying unknown species. He found the ship's cramped quarters actually comforting, as they provided natural privacy and reduced social pressure. On the 4th day, Dr. Vasquez approached him in the ship's small laboratory, where he was calibrating scanning equipment. You seem nervous, she observed. I've never been on a real mission before, Marcus admitted. What if I miss something important? What if my analysis is wrong and people get hurt because of it? Those are good fears to have, Dr. Vasquez said. Officers who aren't afraid of making mistakes tend to make bigger ones. The key is using that fear to make you more careful, not to paralyze you. How do you handle the pressure? I remember that my job is to provide the best analysis I can with the information available. I can't control the outcomes, only the quality of my work. Focus on doing what you're trained to do, and trust your teammates to do the same. Her words helped calm Marcus's anxiety, though he continued to review his procedures obsessively during the remainder of the journey. The Pathfinder dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 438 system, immediately deploying passive sensors to scan for potential threats. The star was a red dwarf, smaller and cooler than Earth's sun, casting everything in a reddish twilight that gave the system an ominous appearance. No immediate signs of hostile activity, reported Chief Petty Officer Williams from the sensor station. But I'm detecting unusual energy patterns near the fourth planet. Kepler 438b, Reynolds confirmed. That's our destination. Marcus, what do your biological scanners show? Marcus activated his specialized equipment, analyzing the energy signatures for patterns that might indicate biological activity. What he found made him frown in concentration. There's definitely biological activity, but the energy patterns are unlike anything in our databases, he reported. The signals seem to phase in and out of detectable ranges, almost like they're shifting between dimensions. Phase dancers, Kess murmured from their station. Possibly, Marcus agreed. But if so, they're far more sophisticated than the research report suggested. The Pathfinder approached Kepler 438b cautiously, maintaining maximum sensor range while scanning for signs of the research station. The planet appeared as a blue-green marble streaked with white clouds, remarkably Earth-like despite orbiting a red dwarf star. There, Dr. Vasquez announced, pointing to a section of the northern continent. Outpost Meridian's energy signature, but it's very weak. Life signs? Reynolds asked. Marcus checked his biological scanners again. Inconclusive. The same phasing energy patterns are interfering with our ability to distinguish between indigenous life and human biosignatures. We'll need to get closer, Reynolds decided. Prepare for orbital insertion. The Pathfinder entered a stable orbit around Kepler 438b, providing a clear view of Outpost Meridian's location. The research station appeared intact from space, but no communications responded to their hails. More concerning were the energy readings Marcus was detecting from the surrounding area. The phasing signatures are concentrated around the outpost, he reported. Whatever these creatures are, they're definitely interested in the human presence. Hostile intent. Sergeant Shin asked, checking his weapon systems. Unknown. The patterns don't match any aggressive behaviors in our databases, but they're also not consistent with simple curiosity. It's almost like they're studying the station. Reynolds made the decision to deploy a reconnaissance team to the planet's surface. Marcus, Kess, and Dr. Vasquez would accompany her in the shuttle, while the remaining crew maintained orbital support and communications. The shuttle descent through Kepler 438b's atmosphere revealed a world of stunning beauty. Vast forests of crystalline trees reflected the red dwarf's light in spectacular displays of color, while floating islands drifted through the upper atmosphere, supported by some unknown force. It was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen, even in the Academy's most exotic holographic simulations. Atmospheric composition is breathable for humans, Dr. Vasquez reported. Slightly higher oxygen content than Earth's standard lower gravity. Biological activity everywhere, Marcus added, watching his scanners register life signs across the spectrum. This planet is incredibly diverse. The shuttle approached Outpost Meridian's landing pad, which appeared undamaged but strangely quiet. No personnel emerged to greet them, and the facility's external lights were dark despite functional power readings. Something's not right, Reynolds said, drawing her sidearm. Maintain alert status. They landed and activated the shuttle's external sensors before opening the hatch. Marcus's biological scanners immediately detected multiple life forms moving around the outpost, but their energy signatures continued to phase in and out of detectability. Phased answers, he confirmed. Multiple individuals, possibly dozens. They appear to be surrounding the facility. Hostile positioning. Sergeant Shin asked. Marcus studied the movement patterns carefully. No, it's more like a perimeter. They're not attacking, they're protecting something. The team approached the outpost's main entrance cautiously. The door responded to Reynolds' command codes, sliding open to reveal a darkened corridor. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls, and the air carried a strange scent like ozone mixed with flowers. "Hello," Reynolds called out. "This is Lieutenant Commander Reynolds of the UES Pathfinder. Respond if you can hear me." A faint sound echoed from deeper in the facility, almost like music, but with harmonics that human ears weren't designed to interpret. Marcus felt a strange sensation, as if something was touching the edge of his consciousness. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. "Hear what?" Dr. Vasquez replied. Marcus realized that whatever he was experiencing might be related to his specialization in xenobiological analysis. His training had included exercises in recognizing non-standard forms of communication, but this was unlike anything he had encountered. They moved through the outpost systematically, checking each room for signs of the research team. The facility appeared to have been evacuated in an orderly fashion, with no signs of struggle or violence. Personal belongings remained in living quarters, and research equipment showed no damage. In the main laboratory, they found the answer to at least part of the mystery. Dr. Sarah Kim, the outpost's lead xenobiologist, sat at her workstation apparently unharmed, but completely unresponsive. Her eyes were open but unfocused, and she showed no reaction to their presence. "Dr. Kim," Reynolds approached cautiously. "Can you hear me?" Marcus activated his biological scanner, analyzing Dr. Kim's vital signs. What he found confused him initially, then filled him with growing understanding. "Her brain activity is off the charts," he reported. "Neural activity in regions associated with memory processing and pattern recognition are operating at levels far above normal human ranges." "Is she injured?" Dr. Vasquez asked. "No, not injured. Enhanced." Marcus continued studying the readings. "Something is interfacing with her nervous system, but not invasively. It's more like a voluntary connection." As if responding to his words, Dr. Kim's eyes suddenly focused on Marcus. When she spoke, her voice carried the same unusual harmonics they had heard in the corridor. "You can hear them too," she said. "The phased answers. They've been trying to communicate with us for months, but none of us could understand until they learned to interface directly with our neural patterns." "Are you all right?" Reynolds asked. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine. Better than fine. They've shown me things, Commander. The phased answers aren't just indigenous life forms. They're refugees from a war that destroyed their original dimension. They've been hiding here, existing partially in our space and partially in dimensional layers we can't normally perceive." Marcus felt the same strange sensation again, stronger this time. Images flashed through his mind. Beings of pure energy fleeing through tears and space-time. A war fought between creatures that existed beyond physical matter, and the desperate search for sanctuary in a universe that didn't understand their nature. "They're showing me," he whispered. "I can see what happened to them." Kess stepped forward, their golden eyes wide with recognition. "The legends of my people speak of such beings. The wanderers between worlds, seeking refuge from the dark hunger that devours dimensions." The phased dancers gradually became visible around them, shimmering figures that seemed to exist at the intersection of light and thought. They were beautiful in a way that transcended physical appearance, beings of pure intelligence and emotion given form through will alone. One of them approached Marcus directly, its form solidifying enough to reveal features that suggested both ancient wisdom and terrible sadness. When it spoke, the words formed directly in his mind. "Young seeker of knowledge, we have waited for one who could bridge the understanding between our kinds. Your people think in patterns that complement our own. Will you help us find sanctuary?" Marcus looked at Reynolds, who nodded slowly. The political implications of first contact with interdimensional refugees were staggering, but The immediate need for understanding was clear. "What do you need from us?" Marcus asked, speaking both aloud and directing his thoughts toward the phased dancer. "Permission to exist in the spaces between your reality," the entity replied. "We do not compete for resources as your species understands them. We seek only the right to heal from our wounds and, perhaps in time, to share knowledge that might benefit both our peoples." Dr. Kim stood up from her workstation, her movements now graceful with the same otherworldly quality as the phased dancers. "They've taught us things about dimensional physics that could revolutionize faster-than-light travel. The energy patterns we've been detecting aren't hostile. They're technological signatures from their dimensional manipulation abilities." "Why didn't you report this discovery?" Reynolds asked. "We tried, but the phased dancers exist partially outside normal time. Our communications couldn't penetrate their dimensional interference. They've been learning to modulate their energy signatures to allow normal transmissions." As if to demonstrate, the facility's communication systems suddenly activated, establishing a clear connection with the orbiting Pathfinder. Chief Williams' voice crackled through the speakers. "Commander, we're receiving a massive data transmission from your location. The computer is classifying it as a xenobiological contact protocol." Marcus realized that the phased dancers had been preparing for this moment, using their interface with the research team to develop communication methods that wouldn't be misinterpreted as attacks by human military forces. "This changes everything," Reynolds said quietly. "We're not just dealing with indigenous life forms. We're looking at potential allies with technology beyond our current understanding." Over the following hours, Marcus found himself serving as an interpreter between human understanding and phased dancer communication methods. His ability to recognize patterns in alien behavior, combined with his xenobiological training, made him uniquely qualified to facilitate meaningful dialogue between the species. The phased dancers shared fragments of their history, a civilization that had evolved beyond physical matter millions of years ago, only to be attacked by entities that consumed dimensional energy. They had fled across multiple universes, seeking refuge in locations where their energy signatures wouldn't attract their predators. "We have hidden in the spaces between your reality for many of your generations," their spokesperson explained through Marcus's interpretation. "We hope to remain unnoticed, but your people's expansion into space has made contact inevitable." "Are you asking for formal sanctuary?" Reynolds inquired. "We seek acknowledgement of our right to exist in the dimensional spaces your people do not occupy. In return, we offer knowledge and protection against threats that exist beyond physical reality." Marcus felt a chill at those words. "What kind of threats?" The phased dancer's response came loaded with images of cosmic horror, entities that fed on the energy of entire star systems, beings that existed to unmake ordered reality, and wars fought across dimensional barriers that could devastate entire galaxies. "The dark hunger spreads through multiple universes," the entity explained. "Your people are young, but your expansion draws attention from forces you cannot yet comprehend. We offer our experience in recognizing and defending against such threats." Reynolds looked at Marcus seriously. "Can you verify what they're showing us?" Marcus nodded, though his face was pale. "The energy patterns they're describing match some classified reports from the Outer Rim. Anomalous disappearances, entire star systems going dark without explanation. If these phased dancers have experience fighting whatever's causing those incidents, then we need to take this to the highest levels of command," Reynolds finished. "This is beyond the scope of a reconnaissance mission." As the team prepared to return to their ship with representatives of the phased dancers, Marcus reflected on how dramatically his role had expanded. From a shy cadet who avoided attention, he had become a crucial bridge between humanity and entities that existed beyond conventional understanding. Dr. Kim and the other researchers elected to return with them, eager to share their discoveries with the broader scientific community. The phased dancers selected 3 of their number to serve as formal ambassadors, beings who could maintain physical coherence long enough to participate in diplomatic negotiations. Standing on Kepler, 438b's surface. Watching the shuttle prepare for departure, Marcus realized that his journey from the margins of Academy life to the center of galactic events was accelerating beyond anything he could have imagined. The quiet, analytical skills that had once made him feel isolated were now positioning him at the forefront of humanity's expansion into a universe far stranger and more dangerous than anyone had suspected. Kess approached him as they prepared to board the shuttle. "Your species continues to surprise me," the Zephyrian observed. "You have transformed from student to interpreter of beings beyond our dimension." "I don't feel transformed," Marcus replied. "I still feel like the same person who couldn't order food in the Academy cafeteria without stuttering." "Perhaps that person was always capable of greatness," Kess suggested. "Perhaps you simply needed circumstances that required your particular strengths." As the shuttle lifted off from the crystalline forests of Kepler, 438b, Marcus looked back at the world that had changed the course of his life and possibly the future of human civilization. The shy cadet who had arrived at the Academy with a single duffel bag was becoming someone he barely recognized, but the transformation felt natural rather than forced. Ahead lay the challenges of facilitating first contact with interdimensional refugees, defending humanity against cosmic threats, and navigating the political complexities of introducing revolutionary technology to a galaxy already struggling with the implications of multiple intelligent species. Marcus no longer wondered whether he belonged in this larger universe. He was beginning to understand that the universe needed people who could think beyond conventional boundaries and find patterns in the seemingly impossible. His real test was just beginning. 6 months after first contact with the phase dancers, Marcus found himself standing in the Galactic Senate chambers on Luna Base, wearing the uniform of a lieutenant in the newly formed Interdimensional Affairs Division. The transformation still felt surreal. The same person who had once been unable to speak up in a tactics class was now preparing to address representatives from 17 different species about threats that existed beyond conventional reality. The Senate chamber buzzed with tension as delegates debated humanity's proposal to establish formal diplomatic relations with the phase dancers. Not all species were comfortable with the idea of acknowledging beings that existed partially outside normal space-time, and several had raised concerns about the security implications of interdimensional refugees. Lieutenant Shun called Senator Kvass the Krillian representative whose species had been among humanity's earliest allies. "Please summarize for the Assembly what these phase dancers have revealed about extradimensional threats." Marcus stepped forward to the speaker's podium, his heart racing despite months of preparation for this moment. The amphitheater contained hundreds of beings from across the galaxy, all focused on his words. 6 months ago, such attention would have paralyzed him with anxiety. Now, while still nervous, he felt the confidence that came from possessing crucial knowledge that others needed. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "The phase dancers have provided intelligence about a phenomenon they call the Dark Hunger. These are entities that consume dimensional energy on a cosmic scale, capable of draining entire star systems of their fundamental forces." He activated the holographic display, showing energy pattern analysis that the phase dancers had helped translate into forms comprehensible to physical beings. The data painted a picture of predators that operated according to physics beyond conventional understanding. "Our analysis indicates that recent disappearances in the outer rim sectors match the energy signatures associated with dark hunger incursions," Marcus continued. 3 star systems have gone completely dark in the past year, with no debris fields or energy traces remaining. The phase dancers recognized these as feeding patterns. Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembly. The missing star systems have been attributed to various natural phenomena, but the idea of cosmic predators added a terrifying new dimension to the mystery. Ambassador T.J.K. of the Crystalline Syndicate raised one of her 3 arms. "What evidence do we have that these refugees are telling the truth about these supposed threats? How do we know this isn't an elaborate deception designed to gain sanctuary through fear?" Marcus had anticipated this question. Over the past months, he had worked with teams of scientists from multiple species to verify the phase dancer's claims through independent analysis. "We've conducted extensive verification," he replied, switching the display to show comparative data. Energy signatures detected by our long-range sensors in the affected systems matched the phase dancer's descriptions with 97.3% accuracy. Additionally, 3 separate species have reported similar phenomena in their historical records, though they lack the dimensional physics knowledge to understand what they were observing. The Zephyrian delegate, Kesteraz clan leader Vorthkala, spoke from their position near the chamber's center. "The human Chun speaks truthfully. Our oldest archives contain references to the devourers from beyond that match these descriptions. We had dismissed them as mythology until now." Marcus felt a moment of gratitude toward Kessa's people. The Zephyrian support had been crucial in building credibility for humanity's claims about interdimensional threats. Senator Kvoss leaned forward in her seat. "Assuming these threats are real, what do the phase dancers propose as a defense strategy?" This was the most complex part of Marcus's presentation. The phase dancers had offered technological assistance, but their methods operated on principles that challenged fundamental assumptions about physics and reality. The phase dancers propose establishing what they call dimensional anchor points, Marcus explained. These are locations where multiple reality layers are artificially stabilized, making it impossible for dark hunger entities to phase through dimensional barriers to consume energy. He showed technical diagrams that represented months of collaborative work between phase dancer knowledge and conventional science. The technology requires materials that exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously, which the phase dancers can help us synthesize. However, construction of these anchor points would require unprecedented cooperation between species. "What kind of cooperation?" asked the Rigelian trade representative. "Each anchor point needs to be constructed using unique resonance frequencies specific to the local space-time geometry," Marcus replied. "This means different species would need to share their most advanced physics research and manufacturing capabilities. The phase dancers can provide the dimensional manipulation techniques, but we need the physical infrastructure from multiple technological traditions." The chamber erupted in animated discussion as delegates debated the implications. Sharing advanced technology had always been a sensitive topic in galactic politics, as each species jealously guarded their competitive advantages. Admiral Chen Wu, the human representative, and Marcus's commanding officer, stood to address the assembly. The Galactic Defense Force is prepared to coordinate a joint construction project with full transparency protocols and shared oversight. This isn't about any one species gaining advantage over others. This is about collective survival against a threat that doesn't recognize political boundaries. Over the following hours, Marcus found himself answering increasingly technical questions about dimensional physics, phase dancer biology, and the practical implications of interdimensional cooperation. His months of intensive study and direct collaboration with the refugees had made him one of the galaxy's foremost experts on these topics. The most challenging moment came when Ambassador SEK Tor of the hegemony questioned the entire premise of humanity's leadership in interdimensional affairs. Why should the galaxy accept human interpretation of these aliens' claims? SEK Tor demanded. Humanity is one of the youngest species in this assembly. What qualifies them to guide our response to cosmic threats? Marcus felt the weight of the question. It challenged not just his expertise, but humanity's entire role in galactic civilization. For a moment, he was transported back to the Academy cafeteria, standing with his tray and wondering where he belonged. Then, he remembered Dr. Kim's words about focusing on providing the best analysis possible with available information. Ambassador Esikator raises an important point, Marcus replied calmly. Humanity's youth in galactic civilization is precisely what qualifies us for this role. We haven't developed the institutional assumptions that might prevent us from accepting new paradigms about reality. He gestured toward the phase dancers' representatives, who maintained their shimmering presence at one side of the chamber. When we first encountered the phase dancers, we didn't reject their existence because it contradicted our understanding of physics. We adapted our understanding to accommodate new data. This flexibility may be humanity's most valuable contribution to interdimensional defense. The argument resonated with several delegates, particularly those from species that had struggled to adapt to rapid technological changes. Marcus continued, building on his theme. Additionally, our xenobiological analysis techniques were developed specifically for understanding alien life forms that operate according to non-human logic. The phase dancers represent the ultimate application of these skills, beings whose entire existence challenges conventional reality. Ambassador THAK nodded slowly. The human makes a valid point. My people have struggled to comprehend these dimensional refugees despite our advanced crystalline computing systems. Perhaps fresh perspectives are more valuable than ancient wisdom in this instance. The debate continued for another 2 hours, but Marcus could sense the mood shifting in favor of the proposal. Species that had initially been skeptical began asking practical questions about implementation timelines and resource requirements rather than challenging the fundamental premise. Finally, Senator Kvass called for a preliminary vote. The measure passed by a substantial margin, authorizing the formation of an interdimensional defense coalition with humanity serving as the primary liaison to the phase dancers. As delegates began filing out of the chamber, Marcus felt a mixture of exhaustion and elation. 6 months ago, he had been a cadet struggling to find his place in academy life. Now, he was a lieutenant responsible for coordinating the galaxy's defense against cosmic threats. Kess approached him as he gathered his presentation materials. His Zephyrian friend had been appointed as their species representative to the new coalition, ensuring that their partnership would continue in this expanded role. Your performance was exemplary, Kess observed. You have successfully transitioned from student to teacher, from follower to leader. I don't feel like a leader, Marcus admitted. I still feel like I'm making it up as I go along. All effective leaders feel that way, replied Admiral Chun, joining their conversation. The moment you become certain you know everything is the moment you stop being useful. Your willingness to acknowledge uncertainty while still taking decisive action is what makes you valuable in this role. Over the following weeks, Marcus threw himself into the practical work of establishing the Interdimensional Defense Coalition. The project required coordinating research teams from multiple species, standardizing communication protocols between beings with radically different sensory systems, and developing construction techniques for anchor points that would operate across dimensional boundaries. The work was challenging in ways that went beyond technical complexity. Marcus found himself mediating disputes between species with centuries-old rivalries, explaining dimensional physics concepts to beings whose mathematics operated on fundamentally different principles, and maintaining diplomatic relationships with phase dancers who experience time and causality differently than physical species. His success came from applying the same analytical approaches that had served him well in xenobiology courses. He treated each species' perspective as valid data to be understood rather than obstacles to be overcome, looking for patterns that could bridge different ways of thinking about reality. The first anchor point construction site was established in the neutral zone between human and Krillian space, selected because it represented the galaxy's commitment to cooperative defense rather than territorial protection. Marcus found himself stationed aboard the construction platform, serving as the primary interface between the multinational engineering teams and the phase dancers who provided dimensional manipulation expertise. Lieutenant Chun to Phase Dancer 7th Harmony, Marcus called out during one of the construction shifts. He had learned to use formal communication protocols when coordinating with the interdimensional refugees, as their perception of individual identity differed from physical species. We acknowledge, Bridgewalker Marcus, came the response, using the title the phase dancers had given him. The dimensional resonance is achieving proper alignment. Marcus monitored his instruments as reality itself was subtly altered around the construction site. The anchor point took shape not as a physical structure, but as a stable region of space-time where the normal laws of physics were reinforced against dimensional intrusion. Zephyrian Engineering Team, please adjust the crystalline matrix frequency by 0.7%. Marcus instructed. Krillian Metallurgists, increase thermal output in Section 7 by 12 degrees. The coordination required split-second timing and perfect communication between teams that had never worked together before. Marcus found himself naturally settling into the role of central coordinator, his pattern recognition abilities allowing him to anticipate problems before they developed into crises. 3 hours into the construction shift, alarms began blaring across the platform. Marcus's dimensional sensors detected energy patterns that matched the phased dancer's descriptions of dark hunger entities. All teams, emergency protocols, Marcus announced over the communication system. We have potential hostile contact approaching from dimensional space. The phased dancers immediately shifted into defensive formation, their forms becoming more solidly visible as they channeled energy into protective barriers. The construction platform's shields activated, but Marcus knew that conventional defenses would be useless against entities that existed partially outside normal reality. Phased Dancer's 7th Harmony, what's our defensive status? Marcus asked. The anchor point is 73% complete, came the reply. Sufficient for partial protection, but not full dimensional stability. The approaching entity appears to be a Scout-class Dark Hunger, drawn by our construction activities. Marcus's training kicked in as he analyzed the threat assessment. A Scout-class entity was manageable with proper coordination, but only if all teams worked together perfectly. All engineering teams focus maximum power on anchor point completion, he ordered. Security teams prepare for dimensional warfare protocols. We need to finish construction before the entity arrives in our reality layer. The next 30 minutes tested every skill Marcus had developed over the past months. He coordinated 11 different species technologies while maintaining communication with beings that existed across multiple dimensions, all while monitoring the approach of a cosmic predator that conventional physics couldn't adequately describe. The Dark Hunger entity manifested as a distortion in space itself, a region where light bent incorrectly and energy patterns collapsed into nothingness. As it approached the construction site, Marcus could feel a wrongness that affected perception at a fundamental level. Anchor point achieving critical mass, reported the phased dancer team leader. Dimensional stability increasing to threshold levels. Krillian weapons teams target the distortion's center point, Marcus commanded. Zephyrian crystal arrays amplify our dimensional resonance. Phase dancers prepare to channel the anchor point's energy into defensive barriers. The battle was unlike anything in conventional military training. Energy weapons targeted coordinates that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, while the phase dancers fought to maintain reality's coherence against an entity that sought to unmake ordered existence. Marcus found himself at the center of the coordination effort, translating between different species' tactical concepts while maintaining communication with allies who experience combat across dimensional boundaries. Direct hit on the entity's primary manifestation, reported the Krillian weapons officer. It's retreating to dimensional space, pursuing into interdimensional layers, added the phase dancers. The threat is neutralized for this operational period. As the emergency passed and normal construction resumed, Marcus realized that something fundamental had changed. The shy cadet who had struggled to speak up in tactical simulations had just coordinated a successful defense against cosmic predators using technologies from multiple species and allies that existed beyond normal reality. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the communication system from the command ship. Outstanding work, Lieutenant. Your coordination prevented what could have been a disaster for the entire project. Later, during the shift debrief, the phase dancer's 7th Harmony approached Marcus with what he had learned to recognize as their equivalent of gratitude. Bridgewalker Marcus, you have demonstrated the qualities we hoped to find in physical species, the entity communicated. Your ability to unite different forms of consciousness against common threats gives hope for successful cooperation against the Dark Hunger. "I was just doing my job," Marcus replied, though he felt a deep sense of satisfaction at the acknowledgement. "Your job," the phase dancer observed, "has become protecting reality itself from forces that would unmake existence. This is not a small responsibility." Over the following months, Marcus continued overseeing anchor point construction across strategically important sectors of the galaxy. Each site required new adaptations and solutions as different species contributed their unique capabilities to the interdimensional defense network. His reputation spread throughout galactic civilization as reports of successful construction projects and defeated Dark Hunger entities reached government leaders and military commanders. The quiet human who had been invisible during his academy days was becoming one of the most recognizable figures in interdimensional defense. The transformation reached its culmination during a ceremony at the Galactic Defense Academy, where Marcus was invited to address the current class of cadets. Standing in the same auditorium where he had once sat in silent anonymity, he looked out at faces that included humans, Zephyrians, Krillians, and several other species, all eager to learn from his experiences. "When I was a cadet in this academy," Marcus began, his voice carrying easily to the back of the auditorium, "I thought leadership meant being the loudest voice in the room or the person with the most obvious charisma. I spent most of my time trying to avoid attention because I didn't think I had anything valuable to contribute." He gestured toward the holographic display showing the current anchor point network protecting inhabited systems across the galaxy. "What I learned is that leadership isn't about commanding attention. It's about paying attention. The galaxy needed someone who could notice patterns that others missed, who could listen to ideas that challenged conventional thinking, and who could find connections between very different ways of understanding reality." A human cadet in the front row raised her hand. "Sir, how did you overcome being shy? How do you speak confidently to representatives from so many different species?" Marcus smiled, remembering his own struggles with exactly that question. "I still get nervous before major presentations. The difference is that I've learned to focus on the information I'm sharing rather than the attention I'm receiving. When you're genuinely trying to help others understand something important, your personal comfort becomes less relevant than your message." A Zephyrian cadet asked about the technical challenges of interdimensional cooperation, leading to a detailed discussion about communication protocols and physics translation between species. Marcus found himself naturally settling into the role of teacher, sharing knowledge with the same analytical approach that had served him throughout his career. After the formal presentation, Marcus walked through the academy corridors with Admiral Chun, who had attended the ceremony. They passed the library where he had spent countless hours studying xenobiology, the dormitory where he had lived in relative isolation, and the cafeteria where he had first met Kess. "Any regrets about how things turned out?" Admiral Chun asked. Marcus considered the question seriously. His life had taken directions he never could have imagined, bringing responsibilities and recognition that still sometimes felt overwhelming. But the work itself, bridging understanding between different forms of consciousness, protecting civilization from cosmic threats, and advancing knowledge about the fundamental nature of reality, felt like exactly what he was meant to be doing. "No regrets," he replied finally. "I spent so much energy trying to fit into what I thought leadership was supposed to look like that I almost missed discovering what leadership actually required from me." They paused outside the academy's main entrance, where the memorial wall displayed the names of graduates who had died in service to galactic civilization. Marcus's name wasn't there, but he knew that his work with the Interdimensional Defense Coalition carried similar risks and responsibilities. "The phase dancers have a saying," Marcus continued. "They believe that every being exists to serve a specific function in the cosmic pattern, but most never discover what that function is. They think humans are particularly good at adapting to fill whatever role reality requires of them." "And what role has reality required of you?" Marcus looked up at Luna's stark surface, visible through the transparent aluminum windows. Beyond lay the vast galaxy he was helping to protect, filled with species whose cooperation had once seemed impossible and threats whose existence challenged the very concept of reality. Bridge builder, he said simply. Someone who helps different forms of consciousness work together toward common goals. It turns out that's exactly what the universe needed, and exactly what I was capable of becoming. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony, humanity's first ship designed specifically for interdimensional operations. The vessel incorporated technologies from 12 different species and was crewed by beings who existed across multiple reality layers simultaneously. As the ship's commanding officer, Marcus oversaw operations that protected the galaxy from threats that most civilizations couldn't even detect. The shy cadet who had arrived at the academy with a single duffel bag had become exactly what he was meant to be, a leader who bridged understanding between different forms of consciousness, protected reality from cosmic threats, and proved that humanity's greatest strength lay not in conquest or dominance, but in their ability to adapt and facilitate cooperation in a universe far stranger and more wonderful than anyone had ever imagined. His journey from the margins to the limelight was complete, but his real work, protecting the galaxy from forces beyond conventional understanding while fostering cooperation between species whose very existence challenged the boundaries of possibility, was just beginning. And Marcus Chun, who had once been invisible in a crowded cafeteria, had found that the universe's most important battles were fought by those who could see patterns that others missed and build bridges where others saw only impossible differences. The galaxy was safer because one shy cadet had learned that leadership wasn't about commanding attention, but about paying attention to what the universe actually needed from him.